Hey everybody, welcome to Cut, Transform, Glue, and welcome to the third Combat Robot base video. This is a packed one. I'll show you guys lots of processes about the creation of a structure to help the Combat Robot staying up. So let's not waste much time right here and let's get to the video. Okay, so here's the Combat Robot and his base as we left in the last video. I'll put a link on the description box for the two first videos of this build, so I will suggest you check them out if you haven't seen it. But yeah, as I said in the title of the video, the Combat Robot has a major design flaw. So let me show you guys. If you poke the robot towards the back of it, it's okay, it doesn't fall, but if you just gently touch it from the back, it will fall forwards. And that happens because of the usage of this ball joint right here. See, at the time I didn't have a choice. I needed to figure out a way to make the feet movable because I wasn't really sure of the angle of the legs, so I had to make this ball joint right here. And I sure knew at the time that this was going to be problematic in the future, so I've put two T-nuts in the bottom of each feet so that I could use some big bolts like these ones right here to attach the foot to the base. As you guys can see in this shot right here, the foot is very loose. It is like almost falling out of the robot. And at the time I also made this structure right here, kind of hiding behind the structure that holds the two little arms that the robot has. And I've made this structure right here because I knew that I was going to make a cable connecting the base to the robot, kind of acting like a third virtual leg. So this is what this video is about. I'll make this structure today. But here's the thing, guys, I was thinking about making it a cable, just a simple cable with some steel rod inside, but I decided to change stuff as I often do, and I'll make like a swiveling arm that will connect the base to the robot much more strongly. Okay, so first things first, let's go shopping. This is a fun part of the process that I usually don't really show in the video, where I'll grab some pieces from my collection to kind of give myself the inspiration for the build. Now, of course, at this point I already have an idea in my mind of what I'm going to make, but I also leave myself open to some new opportunities and crazy ideas that might show up when searching for the Gribblies. And this one right here is a great example of a piece that shows up when I'm going shopping that really changes my mind and points me to a new direction. So I'll create a swiveling base right here with this one, and at the top of it I'll add the segments of an arm that will connect the cables to the robot. I think this idea is much more interesting than using just a simple cable. And here are the pieces that I've selected to use on this process. And I know that I might not use all of them, but I'll keep them around to give myself the inspiration for this structure. You guys are great figuring out where the pieces came from, but this one is really challenging. Can you tell me in the comment section where this piece came from? I'm really curious to see if you guys will be able to figure out this one. This is a very unusual piece source, but yeah, leave me a comment. And to use this piece in the project, I'll give it a nice sanding on the bottom to make it really flat. And also on the top to prepare the surface to receive new structures. Now, as you guys can see, it is pretty flat and I can add structures to it, but before I work right here in the bottom, I'll glue this gribbly right here on the top. And right here in the bottom, I'll glue 2 pieces of laser cut MDF that have a hole in the middle so that I can put a bolt from the top attaching it to the base. And with my Dremel tool, I'll give these 2 tabs right here some cleaning so that I can add some stuff right in the middle of it. Now to give the arm a starting point, I'll glue these 2 pieces of laser cut acrylic to create an axle. So as you guys can see, I gave the 2 acrylic pieces a nice sanding, and I'm gluing it to the black piece with some sea glue. And the challenge right here is to make them aligned so that the axle works perfectly. But once they were glued, I realized something was wrong. So if you guys look closely right here, the black piece has an angle to these 2 tabs right here, making the 2 acrylic pieces misaligned. And this is not ideal, so I have to come up with something different for this piece. But then I found this piece right here, and I call this a magic junk bashing moment. Jokes aside, those 2 pieces fit so perfectly together that they have the same hole that I can use to create the axle point. Now I just have to remove those 2 acrylic pieces that I've glued before, and that took me some effort. Now I'll glue this piece of acrylic right here to cover this hole. And then I could carefully glue all of my fingers but the piece on the top of it. In the back right here, I've glued a piece of MDF to cover the gap, and on the top of it I'll glue this keyboard key from a dead laptop. I really like how this piece is going so far. It is working nice with the black piece to create the arm. The axle point is nice and strong, and I'm happy with it. But then I decided to prepare this piece right here. I did some cleaning and I glued a piece on the inside of it, and now I'm going to glue it right here. And then I threw a first coat of primer onto this piece to see where it was going. I'm happy with it, and now I can move on to work on the arm segments, which will be made using this black piece right here as a starting point. And to go with it, I'll use these pieces right here. I call these the random pieces. And in this bin, I keep every piece that aren't categorized or that I'm too lazy to put into the right bin. The idea right here is to make the arm longer and thinner. I want to create an arm that is thin, reaching the robot. I feel like this black piece is too wide for this purpose. And after I put these 3 pieces together, the acrylic ones and the MDF one, I decided to remove it and flip it, so I did that, and here's the structure that I have now. And right here in the bottom, I'll add some 3D printed greebly. As I often do in my builds, I'm adding right here some details and some pieces that will give myself the opportunity to maybe in the future to go through with some wires or some interesting stuff. At the end of that work day, the piece was finished and it fitted perfectly onto the base, as you guys can see. But on the next day, I took a look at it and I felt it was too big and clumsy, so I decided to try a second version of it. And as you guys can see, I have multiple of those black pieces, so I decided to just quickly throw a second version together. So this is what I did. I grabbed some laser cut pieces of acrylic and MDF and I quickly threw together a second version, and at the end of it I would decide of which one to keep and use it on the project. At the end of the process, I was glad I decided to come up with the second version. As you guys can see, this first version right here is much bigger than the second one. Yeah, so I like this second version and I'm gonna keep it. I'm gonna use it on the project, but I'll keep this first version around and maybe it has some features that are interesting in the future. Then I started working on the next arm segment, and I've worked many hours on this piece that you guys are seeing in the video right now, and I ended up not liking it and throwing it away. I'm keeping this part of the build in the video just so that you guys see that there's a lot of back and forth in my projects, and sometimes I make two versions of a piece until I reach the desired one, so it's okay to make mistakes and to start all over. I guess that's the point right here. This pile of junk right here is all of the pieces that I've tried in that day, and I ended up not using a single one of them, but that's okay. Let's get back to what we had before and start all over in the next day. Okay, so here's the base, and in the next day I made some changes at it. I don't know if you guys can see, but I've put the axle for the first segment kind of backwards a little, and I've added some other pieces to kind of change it. And I decided to start fresh on the next arm segment, so I've grabbed some laser cut acrylic pieces and I gave it some sanding, and then with some CA glue I decided to put some pieces together and start from there. So now that I have a pair of these interesting shape right here put together, I'll sandwich in between them this interesting piece right here, this gribbly. This is actually a piece from a dead computer. I believe this is the connector for some pieces inside a computer in the motherboard. But yeah, I'll put it right in the middle of those two acrylic pieces with some CA glue. In this case right here, I'm using the low viscosity CA glue, and I'm positioning the gribbly first, and then I'm applying the CA glue so that it finds its way in between the pieces and that it keeps everything together. To close the bottom, I will use this piece of laser cut MDF right here. And then again, after I position it, I'll use the low viscosity CA glue to close the whole thing. And now I'll glue a piece of laser cut acrylic to create the axle for the last arm segment. Okay, so this is the basic structure for the arm segment that I was working on, and now I just have to add some details to it. So I'll begin by adding this piece right here. This was 3D modeled and 3D printed. Now I need to create a connection to the previous arm segment, and just to be quick and save myself some time, I quickly 3D modeled and printed this axle right here, and now I just have to glue this arm segment to the top of it. So I did that, and I've also added some other elements. I don't know if you guys can see the video, but yeah, now the connection is perfect and working great, and I can start working on the last arm segment. So I grabbed this piece right here, which belongs to the previous arm segment that I was trying, that I showed you guys a couple of minutes back in the video. So I didn't actually throw it in the garbage bin, I saved it, and now I just have to use this front portion right here to create the connector to the robot. As this is a round piece and I needed to create a flat spot so that I could put the axle connector, I just quickly 3D modeled and printed this piece right here just to save myself some time. And now I have this flat surface right here so that I can put the acrylic laser cut pieces to create the connection. But before I create this last axle, I decided to test it with the robot and the base. And this is when I realized that the second arm segment, the middle one, is kind of too long and I really need to make it shorter. I need to move the last connection point kind of from here to here at least, I think. So I've clamped the piece onto my crappy old vise, and I decided to try to cut the arm to the desired length. Okay, so now the middle segment is much shorter, and I believe this is the perfect size for it. So now I just have to create the connection in between those two pieces, and I'm good to go. So I did that, I grabbed some pieces from the previous connection and I glued it right here in the tip of this piece. And I've also made a way so that I can bolt the bottom segment to the base securely with a bolt. And now I can finally put everything together and see if it works, if it holds the robot in place. Okay, so now that I know that it really does and the robot is nice and secure with this arm, I'm happy with it, and now I just have to add more details to it. Now of course I have to hide these bolts, these big bolts right here, but that will come later in the next video probably. But before I end this video, I need to create a connection in the bottom piece for the power cables. So I have this collection of rubber tubes right here, these interesting tubes that I've used on some other projects, and I want to make a connection from this bottom piece with this black tube right here so that I connect this arm structure to the base. So the idea is to go inside this bottom piece with the black tubes, but before I do that I want to put this interesting white piece right here, kind of creating a connection point on the base. So I need to mark the surface and dig 2 holes in it. And to make sure that I'm going to drill 2 holes in the same place on both sides, I've used a random MDF piece to mark the surface with a Sharpie, and now I just have to make a flat spot on both sides so that I can glue both white pieces in place with some CA glue. But before I glue them right there, I need to drill the holes. I wasn't able to make the holes aligned, but that's okay. I'll glue the white pieces as aligned as I can, and then with the X-Acto knife I'll try to make the holes bigger, I guess. Now I have the white pieces glued and the holes kind of hold the tubes perfectly. But as you guys can see, I need to figure out a way to hold the tube in place in the back of the piece. And for that, I've made this 3D printed piece right here. I'll just drill a hole on the side of this bottom piece, as you guys are seeing in the video right here. And then with a tiny screw, I'll secure them in place. Now, of course, this is a big structure and I need to make a good job hiding it on the next part of the process, but that's okay. For now, it works good and it holds the tubes in place nice and secure. So I'm happy with it. I also need to figure out a way to hide the bolts that connect all of the arm segments, but they are crucial to keep the robot kind of secure. It needs to create a tension, it needs to hold kind of the weight of the robot. Now, I know that some of you guys might be thinking that those cables are too shiny. I know that these are there just to show you guys the idea of the base. So I'll make sure they are not that shiny when I finish this project. Also, the red one is just right there to illustrate. I'll use some black tubes probably. But yeah, I'm happy with how this arm is turning out. I feel like it has a decent amount of detail and they make the whole thing more secure. As you guys can see right here, the robot is no longer falling forwards. This channel is only possible with the support of these amazing people right here. So thank you so much for my Patreon and Ko-fi supporters. If you want to join them and help me keep going, I have a couple of links for you guys in the description box. You can also help this channel by subscribing to it if you haven't already and hitting the like button if you like this video. Also leave me a comment and I'll make sure to answer that. And as always, thanks for watching.